as always, the Minister of Information. She will update us on some decisions coming out of the Cabinet. And we have also taken the opportunity this morning to invite the Minister of National Security, Honorable Peter Bunting. He's here with us this morning. And the Passport and Immigration Citizenship Agency head, Ms. Jennifer MacDonald. To my immediate left is Charles Buchanan from the National Water Commission. I guess from the persons that we have introduced, you can guess the focus of our briefing this morning. I'm going to introduce and hand things over now to Minister Faulkner.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning to our journalists. Thank you for coming. Good morning to our viewers on the PBCJ and those who are joining us on the World Wide Web. Government is moving toward integrating a facial recognition system with the Jamaica passport issuance and control system. The current passport issuing and control system was implemented in 2001 to provide electronic functionality and machine-readable passports. The Canadian Banknote Company, which provided that system, has been given a contract valued at US $1,380,137 to procure a facial recognition system upgrade. With over 2 million machine-readable photographs in the database, the facial recognition system will reduce or eliminate problems of double identity and improve passport processing workflow. All photographs received from applicants will be checked against this database to identify a one-to-one match or to eliminate one-to-many matches. Since the system was introduced in 2001, over 790 cases of identity theft have been detected. Facial recognition is a type of biometric software capable of identifying a specific individual in a digital image. The contract provides for the provision of database services and associated software, as well as a 2-year maintenance and support service agreement. Today, we have Head of the Passport, Immigration and Citizenship Agency, PICA, Jennifer MacDonald, with us, and she will answer your questions. Cabinet has approved the award of a contract to Surrey Paving and Aggregate for the construction of 3 wastewater treatment plants at Blackwood Gardens, De La Vega City, and Lioneltown for the National Water Commission. The contract is valued at US $4,993,700. The National Water Commission operates over 60 such wastewater treatment facilities, and the new treatment plants form part of the effort to ensure that discharges from these plants meet or exceed the standards set by the environmental regulator. The Global Environment Fund, the UN Environment Program, and the Inter-American Development Bank will provide financial support for the project. The scope of work includes design and construction to be carried out over an 11-month period, starting at the end of this month. Cabinet has approved a contract to the National Solid Waste Management Authority, the NSWMA, for the implementation of an all-island maintenance and beautification project. A total of $260,632,364 will be spent for the provision of tools, equipment, labor, and planting materials for the beautification project. An initiative of the Ministry of Tourism and Entertainment, the project will entail resort area maintenance and the building of partnerships with communities, the public and private sectors for long-term sustainability. The proposed beautification works will involve bushing, trimming of verges, pruning of trees, additional planting, and garbage removal. The work will be done in all parishes and will include maintenance of specific areas such as the North Coast Highway between Port Antonio and Negril. The Tourism Enhancement Fund, the TEF, will provide funding for the project, which is to be carried out over a 12-month period. Cabinet has approved an expenditure of $56,013,645 to undertake rehabilitation work at the Milk River Hotel and Spa in Clarendon. The work will be carried by C&D Construction and Engineering Company Limited with professional services by Rivy Gardner and Associates. The work will include renovation of the west wing of the Milk River Hotel and Spa, including demolition, alteration, upgrading of electrical systems, floor finishing, painting, plumbing, roof repairs, and decorating. Milk River Spa has 20 rooms, 13 of which are operable, 9 mineral baths, and a mineral pool. The facility has suffered from aging infrastructure, vulnerability to flooding, and poor road conditions. It is a world-class mineral spa, and it is a heritage monument. It is known for the restorative benefits of its mineral water. The infrastructure improvements and redesigned facilities and service expansion will add to its attractiveness and marketability. And I'll give you a few board appointments. Cabinet has approved the appointment of a new board for the Jamaica Foundation for Lifelong Learning. The board will serve for a 3-year period to May 2018. The new board will be chaired by Mrs. Audrey Hinchcliffe. The JFLL was incorporated as a limited company in 2006 following government's acceptance of recommendations to reposition the Jamal Foundation by broadening its mandate to become an all-inclusive adult learning organization. There's also a new board for the National Agency for Accreditation, and the chairman of that board is Dr. Hugh Vaughan. And the National Environmental and Planning Agency also has a new board, and that board will be that new board will be chaired by Dr. Judith Robinson. And Attorney at Law John Juna has been reappointed to serve as chairman of the Natural Resources Conservation Authority of Jamaica. And the deputy chair is Dr. Carol Archer. And you may recall that yesterday afternoon, the Minister of National Security, the Honorable Peter Bunting, outlined a number of measures in Parliament to tackle the spike in murders. And we're happy to have the Minister with us this morning. And it's for a brief period. He has another meeting. So we're just going to open the floor. We ask that if you have questions for the Minister, you direct them to him first, and then we'll deal with the other matters. So we open the floor. Can we get a microphone for Gary, please?
Yes, he indicated in Parliament yesterday that, with the exception of murders, serious crimes are down. I noticed the Facebook, the social network Facebook, was lit up this morning because people were debating that issue. They are saying that it is a smokescreen. What say you?
It's just the figures. It's just the data that's produced by the police statistics division. What happens is the headline grabbing crimes tend to be murder primarily. Shootings, rapes, aggravated assaults, other violent crimes tend to take second place. And in fact, the police statistics are backed up by independent polls done by the university in association with USAID and Vanderbilt, the so-called LAPOP study, which shows that Jamaica actually has, surprisingly, the lowest crime victimization rate in the region. The crime victimization rate is persons who answer that they have been, when they're surveyed, they answer whether or not they have been a victim of a crime in the last 12 months. So one of the things that this spike is highlighting is that what we're not seeing an across-the-board increase in crime. We're not seeing an increase in accusatory crimes, break-ins, robberies. We're not seeing an increase in rape or aggravated assault or even shootings. What we're seeing is an increase in murders. And one of the explanations for this is it really represents targeted assassinations of persons or their associates who are involved in some sort of criminal activity, whether lottery scamming, other types of gang activity, narcotics trafficking. So the general incidents of violence have not increased. It's just the deadly nature, the deadliest incidents have increased.
I get the impression though that they're not disbelieving you, but they seem to need some kind of assurance that something will be done about the murder rate. They have not disputed, the statistics or the data, but that you're trying to cover that. The suggestion is that you're trying to cover the whole issue of the murder with the fact that other crimes are done.
Absolutely not. I mean, the data is what the data is. But what it helps us to understand is the nature of what is driving it. Unless you understand the nature of what is driving it, then you won't be able to formulate an effective response. And that's really what the sharing of that wider data set was intended to do.
Andre?
2 minute questions for you, Minister. The Violence Prevention Alliance last week told us that part of the issue with this spike in crime is that there is not enough community policing, one, and the other, I don't remember the other one right now, but can you respond to that, whether the police are actually in communities trying the soft approach versus other?
We have more of that community type policing now than we have ever had. Part of what we are seeing now is dispersion of where murders are occurring. 5 years ago or 10 years ago, murder was very much concentrated in the hot spots. If it was St. James, you could point to, Flanker, Norwood, Granville, Salt Spring. Now, when you look at the map of St. James, from deep rural, from Maroon Town, Cambridge, Barrett Town, all these areas that, really going right back up to the Westmoreland border, Bethel Town, all these areas that you would consider deep rural, that were not, areas that the police would have to pay a lot of attention to. These are where a lot of the murders are now taking place. Because as the focus intensified in the traditional hotspots, a lot of these criminals were displaced to rural areas. Logwood in Hanover, we've had a series of murders there. And unfortunately, as scamming has, I use the word in Parliament, democratized, but as it has become, more widely dispersed, 3 years ago, you could almost identify scammers by their lifestyle. You had obviously a relatively few persons making a whole lot of money. Now it appears that there are much more people involved, maybe not making as much money or maybe more sensitive to being identified by the police, and they are not geographically concentrated. They find quiet rural communities. Once they have cell phone signal, they can operate from those communities. That makes it much more difficult to police because of the wide geographic dispersion of where these incidents are taking place.
Last week, or probably week before last, the police commissioner gave himself a grade, which drew some criticism. Are you pleased with his performance 10 months since he's been on the job?
Well,
and how would you grade him?
I think the police commissioner already addressed that. The law gives him sole operational superintendence of the force. The minister has no operational authority over the force, and therefore I would not even want to venture into that area. No, I'm not going to go there.
Anybody else?
But I will
Sorry.
say the commissioner of police continues to enjoy my confidence.
Anybody else has a question for the minister? All right, we're going to say going once, going twice. Minister, obviously you were quite clear in Parliament yesterday, so Andre doesn't have any more questions for you, nor does Gary. Thank you very much for joining us, Minister. Oops. I just rearrange.
Mrs. McDonald,
Miss.
I'm talking layman.
1 second before you go, Gary. We also have Charles Buchanan with us here, and we know they have implemented the water restrictions, and we wanted Charles to come to give an update on what is happening, what we expect over the next few weeks. So go ahead, Gary.
Can you simplify the minister's term? Facial recognition system.
All right.
That's the name of the system, sir. Not my term.
I will share with you when my first lecture at in my MBA program at UWI, and the lecturer said that beauty can be mathematically defined. And I thought he was crazy. And he said it had to do with the position of the various features on your face.
I thought you were going to say that Andre is 1 + 1.
No. And this was many years ago. And really it sort of grabbed my attention, and I think the attention of the entire class, that the if you would want to call it the geography of your face, right? The positioning of the various features on your face, they're really unique to you in many instances. And so what we want to do is, if someone comes to us, let me be very simple. If someone comes to us with my name, the minister may come to apply for a passport in my name, but we will see that it is a different photograph, and we are able to match not just the obvious matches, but we are looking at digitally at the various features of the face to see the extent to which one face is the same as or is different from another. This technology, while new to us, has been used internationally in airports, in many other places. It's just that it is new to us, and it is going to be in the system, right? So we believe that this will allow us a greater level of identity management, because you know that nowadays persons are seeking to get another identity. In the past, persons would put a new picture in a photograph. That what we call photo substitution is not really the in thing anymore by the fraudsters. And this has been internationally acknowledged when you go to the ICAO conferences. And so we believe that this offers a greater level of security, and it really protects the individual, because you would not want someone to be using your identity.
Andre?
Has Speaker had a problem with people stealing identity, and at
Yes,
what level are we talking about?
Well, I think we did about what?
Was it 175?
Once in the period we did, I think it's about since 2001, about
790
790 that we have had in that period. And we have what we want to do, we just want to improve the level of security. And I really want to stress this, because you would not like, Andre, to apply for your passport and being told, oh, we have already issued one to you, because someone has stolen your identity.
I have a question for Mr. Buchanan.
Sure.
There are communities that have, you still have the schedule every other day, right?
Yes.
There are communities that are complaining that on their scheduled day to have water, their communities are not getting water. What's the issue with that?
We're aware of some complaints from some specific communities. And in fact, we had recognized in our release that we issued when we were establishing the schedule, we had indicated that unfortunately there will be some areas that despite the best efforts and the schedule that we had put in place, may not be able to receive pipe supply simply because of where they are on the network, their elevation, and the time required for the system to charge to get to them. We had hoped that those would be limited. We have also encountered some additional problems, though, because when you have a system and you make all the arrangements to supply, let's say, Zone 8 today, and then you end up with power supply problems on the network overnight, or a broken transmission line, that's a 12-inch line that takes water to parts of the network, or you end up with air blockages on the system, it will create some problems for some persons on the system. What we ask is that persons bring those cases to our attention. The field personnel will investigate and will try to respond. But yes, unfortunately, there are some persons who are not consistently receiving their supplies on the days they are expected to.
Can you explain the system, the time it takes for the system to charge?
The time it takes the system to charge varies greatly. So, for example, a Hermitage constant spring system, unlike electricity supply where you basically turn a switch at a plant and the entire network lights up almost instantaneously. Water supply, the water has to leave the treatment plant and gradually flow, because you don't want it to move too rapidly and then rupture your lines, to the entire miles and miles of pipeline. And if that system is a very long system that has like a Hermitage constant spring system, it will take, in some cases, hours before some persons begin to receive supply. That is one reason, for example, why most customers on the Hermitage constant spring system do not receive water at 4 in the morning, although that is when we begin operations at the plant. So it will take, for most people, about 2 hours, but for some areas, it will take more.
Gary?
Does that account for some areas on the flat not receiving water at all for days? I'm told of Maxfield, Walter Park area.
There are some areas that may have either one or both of those issues. So, for example, on one day last week when we started some of the operations, and then you had that freak storm, disrupted the power supply for about perhaps about 24 hours. We had no power at Tuller Springs. We had no power at Bybrook. We had no power at White Marl, Ferry, Forest Hills, Molynes Booster, and several other of the critical areas. We could not move more than 18 million gallons of water that we had available but could not get to come into the corporate area because of that. We've had a few other instances and hiccups since then. We also had, when you are operating your water supply network in these abnormal conditions where the pressure fluctuations in the pipeline is very wild, you will end up with an increased frequency of breaks on your line. So since last week, we have had a number of instances where large transmission mains have broken, and we have had to intervene to repair them, unfortunately disrupting the supply to persons.
Can I come up here, Ms. McDonald? E-passport, is that anywhere on the card?
In the future, these things take some money. So that is something for the future. But you will know that about a year or two ago, we upgraded the data page to make it more secure. I don't know if you recall that about 2 years or so years ago, we upgraded the data page to make it more tamper-proof. But e-passports is something to come, because that's a horse of a different color in terms of the resources that are required.
Gary, we're going to allow CVM to have a question, and then
Thank
they have a microphone.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. This one is for Mr. Buchanan. My name is Nika Lewis from CVM News, and the concern I'm having is one regarding the constant problems in the dry season when we talk about water being off for several hours or days and all of that. It's something that we've always had for perhaps the longest while. What I want to know is how significantly different has the preparation and the planning been for the NWC in this regard compared to previous years?
Let me answer that by saying that what we have, part of the challenge we do have, and it's been a long-standing challenge, is to be able to develop water supply systems that are more resistant to drought conditions. And unfortunately, each year, the drought scenario may change significantly. So some of your interventions that may improve the supply capabilities in one area based on your resource limitations may not be the same area that is severely impacted by drought conditions in the next. I also want to add that I think it is absolutely clear that the scientific predictions regarding climate change, where they indicate that you're going to have worsening and more variable weather patterns with longer periods of drought and more intense and infrequent periods of rainfall, is really impacting Jamaica. So I want for us to bear that in mind in saying, I think we also are looking, the National Water Commission, at doing some more long-term and lasting corrections to some of the issues that we face in this regard, because as you would be aware, just last week, the Most Honorable Prime Minister was involved in the official signing of a $4.9 billion non-revenue water program for Kingston and St. Andrew. With that program, which is expected to be done over 5 years, with a program like that, you could supply nearly all of your customers with much less water than you currently try to do. So non-revenue water reduction is a major component of our long-term strategy going forward. And apart from this project, which it is the singular focus, most of our other major projects that we have undertaken in recent years have included some element of non-revenue water reduction. We're also looking at long-term, especially for urban centers, treating with the issue of centralized sewage networks. Because not only do centralized sewage systems protect public health and protect the environment, but they're also critical water supply resources, sustainability issues. Because, for example, if the underground aquifers in and around Kingston were not contaminated, we would be able to use more water from underground, which are less drought impacted, and we would be able to use that water to serve more persons. So in the long term, a number of the things you see us do in increments based on the availability of funding are leading towards these improved climate resilience type projects, which should see us eventually being able to resist more of these kinds of El Nino conditions and climate change conditions.
We're going to take two other questions, and then we'll close our briefing. We're going to take two further questions.
I'm Carol Walker from LukeJamaica.com. Mr. Buchanan,
Yes, sir.
last year when we had the drought, the Minister of Water made this grand announcement about the desilting of the Hermitage Dam. Could you give us an update on why it was supposed to be done during the dry season and all that, and we probably would have helped the water problem, and I gather that has been shelved. Could you bring us up to date with that, please?
What I can indicate is that it's not that that project has been shelved, but indeed that project has not come on at the rate that was announced, at the pace that was announced. And that has been the case for several reasons, including the fact that while the National Water Commission has initiated and received some amount of grant funding to undertake some detailed technical studies on it, we still have to make arrangements for the financing of the overall project. There are also some issues that have been raised with regards to the sustainability of simply desilting the Hermitage Dam without also undertaking major work to ensure that the Hermitage watershed upstream of the dam is corrected so that you don't clean out the silt today, and because of the rate of erosion and desilting that's happening, you end up immediately returning to a situation like you had before. So whatever desilting is to be done will need to be done along with activities in the watershed. The other concern has been that one has to be rather careful in doing any major work in the Hermitage Dam area, because as we know, the Hermitage Dam is not very young. It is some 88 years old or somewhere thereabouts, and the large part of the structure is earthen based. So one needs to be very studied and careful in undertaking this work. I also draw your attention to the fact that the Water Resources Authority, as well as the National Water Commission and others with some expertise in the area, have indicated that desilting or expanding storage facilities in the corporate area by themselves do not represent a sustainable solution to the problems we're having. Although it might appear so, studies have shown that this by itself would not be a solution.
Nationwide?
Good afternoon. Siobhan Campbell, Nationwide News, sir. I have two questions. Firstly, I want to know, how has the policing efforts alongside the JCF done in terms of policing the prohibition, stopping people from gardening, using water to wash their cars? Has there been any bite added to that?
Not to my knowledge, and unfortunately I must confess that I haven't had a comprehensive report from some of the persons in the field, but based on the information available to me at this time, we are proceeding with preparatory type interventions with the police, where our legal department and others are in discussion with various levels in the force to ensure that we are fully prepared in doing this. But I also want to say that the Commission's first option, first choice, is not to simply go and prosecute and have persons arrested and brought before the courts. Our first hope and intention is to get persons to willingly recognize that there is a critical water shortage affecting the country, and it is in our collective best interest to do the right thing and save water wherever we can, not waste it. So if it is that through the stories that you have carried in the media, persons have gained a better appreciation of the issue and changed their behavior, we would much rather that than having to go the tough route of policing it, which is also very difficult. But if we're forced to, we will.
You have a follow-up?
Not a follow-up, slight slightly off topic. In terms of your Cruncher 180 program, I'm curious, how has it been going on thus far? How much revenue has been, I would like to use the word recaptured under it, if you have a update on it?
We wouldn't be able to give the figures as it stands at the moment, but I can say that yes, we have had some favorable responses. We have, as a consequence, started opening our offices on Saturdays, and throughout the month of July, the National Water Commission's offices in perhaps about 9 parishes will remain open on Saturdays between 9 a.m. and 2 p.m. We have had a host of queries. We have had persons making payments and taking advantage. We still wish we had more. We wouldn't mind a crowd at the offices to take up the offer, because it would also help the National Water Commission in being able to respond to the emergencies situation that we now have if we had more of our revenues. Yes, I didn't say, but we wouldn't mind. We wouldn't mind a problem.
All right, John.
Andre, we'll take the last question from you.
Actually, I have 2 for you, Minister.
All right, Andre.
One, Dom Rep last week held a press conference stating that there is no reversing their policy, the new law, Immigration 16914, and they're saying that basically the countries who have come out against it have misunderstood what the new immigration law is doing. They should have had an interview with us, but they're saying they are not going to speak with the media until they speak with the government. Have they spoken to the government?
Not that I'm aware of. Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. 2 weeks ago, when you were here defending the government's decision to postpone local government election, you reiterated some of the reasons that were presented in Parliament, mostly dealing with local government reform. But then a cabinet minister on the weekend admitted that
No, that's not what he said. I spoke to the minister about that. I think he was misunderstood. The minister said what he was communicating at the meeting was that the PM will call the election when she's ready, so no one can force her hand to call the election. That was in essence what he was saying.
Or maybe he misunderstood what he said, because what we heard him say on tape...
that was what he intended to say. I spoke to him about it.
Oh, so he intended to say that, but
that
said
is,
something else.
I did not listen to the full clip of what he said. I saw the article in the paper and I asked him about it. And he said what he communicated was that the Prime Minister will call it whenever she's ready, which is always a prerogative of a Prime Minister to call an election when she's ready.
Okay, we'll
or
review
he
that.
or she is ready.
All right.
Thank you very much. Thank you, guys. Have a wonderful rest of the week and be safe. And we want to thank our viewers on the PBCJ and those on the World Wide Web. Have a great day.